Welcome to Crossroads, a show by the Epoch Times that goes beyond the headlines. Now, as always, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps to get the show out to more people. But look, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has now been officially signed into action. Trump signed it, and it represents a pivotal moment for the United States on one side or the other, depending where you stand on it. Now, look, part of this, it does include tax cuts. It includes large-scale spending cuts. And it also includes, well, a whole lot of brand new spending. But I want to go over what was actually included in the final version of the bill, because a lot of people might be asking, well, what's actually in it, right? Now, first off, it does include some pretty big tax cuts. Basically, what it does, the biggest thing probably, it takes Trump's tax cuts from his first administration, like the 2017, this was the Tax Cuts in Job Act, and it makes those permanent. So they're now officially signed into law. Again, passed by Congress, voted on, signed. It also increases the child tax credit to $2,500. It raises the state and local tax, that's the SALT deductions, from $10,000 to $40,000, so a big jump. And that's if you make less than $500,000 a year. Now, it also has the no tax on tips, one of the big things that they added to it. And the way that's going to work, if you make less than $150,000 a year, no tax on tips. You can make up to $25,000 in tips. You're not going to be taxed on it, which is going to be interesting. We'll see how people use that, because remember, it's not just waiter service and stuff like that at restaurants. This could be like someone gives you like a $10,000 tip or something like that. Maybe not that much, but it could be things like that. There's been some talk that you might even see some people writing off things they might normally have to write off, and they're going to call it tips. We'll see. It also has the new Trump accounts. Those are the saving accounts for kids. So kids, again, they can get this. It also includes a very long list of deductions and exemptions and all kinds of stuff, which is too long to get into. But basically, it's going to save people probably a lot of money on taxes. That is pretty true. Now, as for border security, it gives a massive budget for border security, around $350 billion. A big chunk of this budget was border security. And not just security, deportations, right? Part of this does include the wall. They're not done building it yet. In fact, even when I was in San Diego recently, I went and toured it. There's still a big chunk, even in that sector, totally unbuilt. They're getting $46.5 billion to finish building the wall. Trump also wants a buoy barrier in the Rio Grande and parts of Texas. They have another $45 billion that's going to be used to expand the detainment facilities that are being used for deportations. Think like the big facility they have in Texas, or what do they call Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. They're going to be building more of those. And we'll see what happens. I know Ron DeSantis was saying he wants Alligator Alcatraz to be a model for other states to follow. We'll see, depending on controversy, whether they can do that. You're already having the issue that ICE, when agents go places, they're being harassed. People are doxing them. They're listing their families' names. Protesters are outside the buildings, making noise so they can't sleep. And so if they do try to build facilities, they're probably going to get targeted. But at the same time, one of the reasons why they need these, in terms of deportations, the bottleneck right now is the holding facilities, the limited beds, the limited space they have, because it puts a cap on the amount of deportations they can carry out. This also has about $30 billion additionally that's going to be used to hire and train more ICE agents. So ICE is about to get supercharged. Now, included in that, they're also getting about $100 billion overall of increased funding for ICE. And it also puts brand new fines on illegal immigrants who defy orders to self-deport. So, again, spending increase to deportations and border security. But inside the bill also was, if you're an illegal immigrant, you're told to self-deport, you don't do it, you're going to start paying money. They're going to fine you in different ways. That's also included in this. It also puts in new forms of vetting to help make sure that unaccompanied alien kids are being sent to safe locations and not to like empty lots or strip clubs and things like that, which are some of the big accusations of what was happening before. Now, for air traffic control, good news for New Jersey, where air traffic has been having blackouts. It puts $12.5 billion to help modernize the systems. That's going to be a big deal for places like Newark, the airport here, because they've been having outages and they're caused by old equipment. Like they have stuff that's basically never been updated. Now, on some of the more controversial parts, if that's not controversial enough, depending where you stand, it does include about $1 trillion of Medicaid cuts over the next 10 years. And people are wondering what that means because I've received a lot of messages. People are asking, are they going to cut Medicaid? I know a lot of elderly people, they're worried, they're really worried about this. This is how it's going to work, right? The way it works, if people are able-bodied, under the age of 65, they don't have kids, they might lose Medicaid. And that's basically also only if they don't want to work a part-time job. They have to work 80 hours a month. 80 hours a month to keep Medicaid if they're able-bodied under the age of 65. This does not affect the elderly. It does not affect people who are disabled. It does not affect parents if they have kids under the age of 7. So basically, it's like people who just don't really need it in the eyes of some of these people. I do believe there will be some people who probably do need it who will get swept up with this. But for the most part, I think it's mainly going after people who are capable of working and are choosing not to. It would also put more checks in place to see if people are actually eligible. And so that could be a big problem for people too. It means if you're getting Medicaid, they're going to be sending people to check you out. They're going to be seeing, are you actually eligible for it? Do you really need this? Are you able-bodied? What are your situations? They're going to be doing a lot more of those. And this also includes checks for eligibility of the Affordable Care Act, that's Obamacare. So if you're getting Obamacare, they're also going to check you out. Do you actually need it? Are you able-bodied? And so on. They're going to be doing inspection type stuff. There are different estimates on what this will actually mean in practice. It is possible, like if you read a lot of the if you read the establishment media, they're saying they think around 11.8 million people are going to lose Medicaid. Included in that, probably a lot of illegal immigrants. I know people say that under the law currently they're not able to get it. Federally they're not, at the state level they are. And so states are going to be incentivized to not give it to them. It's also similar, and on that point, if they do get it, they're going to get home inspections probably. They're going to check them out. So it's it might get you deported because they're going to be checking people out. It's actually similar also with food stamps. People who are on food stamps, a lot of people might lose their eligibility for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that's SNAP, right? Again, food stamps. Under this bill, it also has work requirements for food stamps, just like with Medicaid. If you're under 65 years old, you don't have a kid who's under the age of 7, then there's a work requirement, right? You got to work 80 hours a month. And it also has new checks in place to see if people are actually eligible. So not only Medicaid, if you're getting food stamps, they're going to check you out. When it comes to energy, another big thing here, it gets rid of a lot of the taxes on methane. That was one of the things preventing a lot of new energy programs. It also clears the way for developments on federal lands for oil, gas, coal, and nuclear power. And interestingly, it's going to start phasing out clean energy, the tax credits for that. That used to basically have government support for like wind and solar, these subsidies for electric cars. One thing that Trump is saying might impact Elon Musk. Elon Musk is having a bit of a conflict with Trump right now. I'll get into that in a bit. But this is one thing basically with the energy systems. They're going to phase out the government programs that were propping up, clean energy, as they call it, solar and wind. And they're clearing the way for energy when it comes to nuclear, coal, all that. What that means, a lot of people have said that solar and wind, it is only sustainable with subsidies. If the government does not subsidize it, the industries don't really work. And so those are going to stop getting their subsidies to a very strong extent. And you're going to watch a lot of more conventional energy programs start up again, nuclear power, coal power, and so on. There's also a very long list of other funds and cuts and programs, but these are the major ones. Again, we'd be talking for like 16 hours for everything in it. Those are the major ones. There's different takes on how much the BBB will actually cost. Some people have argued it's going to put us massively in debt. It's going to cost around $4.5 trillion and cause a spike in the deficit. Our whole paychecks, when it comes to taxes, might just go into interest rates. Others argue that over the course of time, the cost might be a lot less severe. I'll give my take on it, but let me show you just the news said. They say Republicans' big, beautiful bill is under fire from budget watchdogs for permanently expanding the bulk of the expiring 2017 tax cuts, a move that puts the total cost of the bill at $4.5 trillion and would lead to a primary deficit increase of $3.3 trillion by 2034. But it says Republican congressional leaders and the White House believe that a more accurate cost analysis would zero out the impact of codifying the tax cuts, making the net cost of the budget reconciliation bill only $441 billion over the next decade, 10 years. You know, the drastic difference depends on which budgetary baseline is used. And so when you're hearing both sides talk, this is the issue, right? Which budgetary baseline are they using? And it's the current law baseline always used to calculate tax cut impact on the deficit, or the current policy baseline always used to calculate federal spending impact on the deficit. Those are the two different narratives you're going to be hearing. And notes that using the traditional current law baseline, however, would not allow Republicans to make the tax cuts permanent without having to find trillions more savings. So they adopted the current policy baseline in their version of the Big Beautiful Bill, breaking historical precedent. My personal take on that is this. I think if you just look at tax cuts, because that's the biggest thing they're pointing at is the tax cuts, when it comes to can we make up the cost of this, I think they need to also consider the tariffs and what the tax cuts mean. Remember them back in 2017 when Trump did pass the tax cuts. The thinking of it was this, because at the time, remember, they were also saying the tax cuts were going to massively increase the deficit. We're not going to be able to raise enough taxes to pay, for basic services. We're going to go massively in debt, so on. It did not happen. Why did it not happen? It made it easier for people to have businesses here. The incentive, the idea is this. You incentivize people to move their businesses to the United States. Don't go to China, don't go to Mexico, don't go to Canada. That's the thinking, right? You want people to move their businesses back. Trump has two pressure points on that now. The big one being the tariffs, the other one being taxes. If you move your factory here, you don't pay tariffs and you pay a whole lot less on taxes. The thinking is, what is a factory? A factory is not just a big corporation. A factory is every worker there. A factory is the entire supply chain. It's the materials, it's the distribution, it's the transportation, it's the manufacturing. In other words, every one of those jobs is a person. Every one of those people is a taxpayer. And if you bring it here, that's all domestic tax dollars. And so you get a lot of people working. You create a lot of better jobs. You don't send that money abroad. That circulates in the economy. And the thinking is, they spend money, they go to the store, they buy new products. That creates more jobs. It creates more money in the economy, not capital outflow. This is internal circulation of cash. The idea is it's going to be better for the economy. On the other part, too, they have new ways of collecting money. The tariffs are a big one. That's not being factored in right now because this week, I'll get into it in a bit, this week is when Trump's going to put the tariffs back into effect. He's had it basically waiting on the sidelines, 10% for most of the world. This week, it's going to change. The tariffs are going to bring in probably a lot more money if they keep them, so we'll see. And also, they're going to be fining illegal immigrants. And so all those, they say 10, 20 who knows how many million people. If you're going to be fining all of them, if they can actually collect it, that's also going to be a lot of money in the economy. So we'll see how that works. Now, look, in other news, though, not everybody likes this. In fact, even among Republicans, some people don't like it. And Elon Musk is launching a new political party. They've now officially done it. It's the America Party, and I'll be talking more about it after we come back from a quick break.
All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, don't forget to support us by hitting the like button. Let me know what you think of the show in the comments also. Now look, Elon Musk's brand new third party, new political party, has been officially formed. Paperwork has now been filed with the Federal Election Commission, and they've now officially created Elon Musk's America Party. This is official now. Interestingly, the filing lists the chief financial officer is Vaibhav Taneja. A lot of people are saying, who is that? That's the CFO of Tesla. That's the chief financial officer of Tesla. So he's also CFO of the new America Party. Elon Musk wrote this. He said, by a factor of 2 to 1, you want a new political party and you shall have it. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. His biggest platform is cutting spending. Basically, in my personal take, this is like if Doge became a political party, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. Other than that, most of the policies they're talking about are very, very much Trump-type Republican line. Free speech, constitutional rights, focus on jobs. A lot of that is there, but you take that and mix it with Doge. They want to massively cut government spending. We're not getting any clear-cut version of like what they actually want in terms of breakdown politics. For example, if they want to really talk about cutting the budget, a big question would be like interest rates and things like that. They're not that far along in terms of that debate. A lot of people also question Elon Musk's stance on like foreign workers, H-1B visas and stuff. He's generally very supportive of those things. I think Trump is too. Honestly, he has like the gold card where you can just buy American citizenship. We'll see what it means. But basically with Elon Musk, this came back to another poll that he posted. And he again asked if he should create an America Party as the new third party for the United States. The last poll he had previous to this, 80.2% of people voted yes. The newest poll, the one that he kind of double-checked, he posted on the Independence Day, July 4th, 65.4 people voted yes, just 34.6 voted no. And in that poll he asked, Independence Day is the perfect time to ask if you want independence from the two-party, some would say uniparty system. Should we create the America Party? Now, just following that, Elon Musk also laid out a bit of what the strategy is actually going to look like. He posted this. He said, one way to execute this would be to laser focus on just 2 or 3 Senate seats and 8 to 10 House districts. So not a huge campaign, like laser focus basically on swing states, right? And swing states and just key areas of Congress. And he said this. He said, given the razor-thin legislative margins, that would be enough to serve as the deciding vote on contentious laws, ensuring that they serve the true will of the people. My take on this, he's suggesting that, look, the big, beautiful bill barely passed. J.D. Vance had to be the tie-breaking vote. And what he's suggesting here is if they can get, I don't know, a handful of senators and, again, representatives who are not going to be voting to spend more money, they can block things. They can be the group that decides what can get passed and what doesn't. They're not talking yet about a presidential candidate. We'll see if they actually do that. But this is going to be effectively a new political party when it comes to probably the midterms. Before all this, back on June 30th, Musk had said that he would attempt to have Republicans in Congress voted out of office if they help pass the big, beautiful bill. He wrote that every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their heads in shame. And he said they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. So Musk kind of threatened their careers to an extent. And I mean, look, it's going to be interesting if he says that's the last thing he's going to do. Basically, most Republican members of Congress did vote for the bill. Now, the announcement also drew quite a bit of pushback, mainly from conservative influencers. A lot of them are questioning whether Elon Musk is going to kind of torpedo the entire conservative movement. Scott Pressler, he's been running a lot of the grassroots voter registration campaigns for Republicans. Going back to the first term in Trump's office, he responded to Elon Musk and he noted what he's seen. He noted that just in 2024, Republicans lost really narrow votes, Senate votes in Wisconsin and in Michigan. And he said the losses were caused because of third-party candidates splitting the vote. And he's suggesting, as are many others, if Elon Musk puts up a third-party candidate, they will probably not win, but they will cause Republicans to lose. That's the argument. We'll see if that actually happens. Unless maybe Musk has the candidates run on the Republican platform. That's also possible. It's what Democrats, Socialists of America do when they run in elections, right? They have them run as Democrats, and so if they win the primaries, they go on from there. We'll see if that happens. Now, not just all of this, though. President Trump also commented on Elon Musk starting a new party yesterday. And Trump said that third parties have never worked. Watch this.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
Now, Trump also posted about this in Truth Social, and he suggested the elimination of the electric vehicle mandate in the big, beautiful bill. He's saying that is what prompted Elon Musk to start a third party. He said, quote, Republicans, on the other hand, are a smooth-running machine that just passed the biggest bill of its kind in the history of our country. It is a great bill, but unfortunately for Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle EV mandate, which would have forced everyone to buy an electric car in a short period of time. Basically, Trump is saying that there's financial interests involved with this. He's accusing Elon Musk of being against the bill because it's probably going to hurt Tesla. Is that the case? If you look at Elon Musk's, I mean, it probably will impact Tesla. But if you look at Elon Musk's previous statements, I mean, honestly, his role with Doge, he also has a track record of being very much against overspending in the government. Maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe it's one or the other. Who knows? But look, on another topic, the Chinese Communist Party is allegedly planning to build new centers for organ harvesting. They're upping their business in the human organ trade. Telegraph said this. He said, China is to triple the number of facilities it uses to forcibly harvest the organs of detained Uyghur people, it is claimed. Uyghurs are the Muslim minority in what they call East Turkestan, also known as the Xinjiang region. These are effectively an old ethnic group. The CCP has been targeting them for genocide. Now, it notes that experts have raised the alarm after it emerged that the Xinjiang Health Commission, a branch of China's National Health Authority, plans to open 6 new medical centers by 2030, bringing the total in the region to 9. And that's a big expansion. It notes the expansion has heightened concerns over China's treatment of Uyghur people against whom the government already stands accused of genocide. It uses them for slave labor, it tortures them, it kills them, it forces them to renounce their religion, and it uses them as living sources for organ transplants, like it does to a lot of other groups as well. Now, it notes that Beijing has also been accused of forcibly harvesting the organs of prisoners from minority groups and in some cases selling them to wealthy recipients willing to pay the equivalent of tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of pounds. This is a UK news outlet, right? It notes that earlier victims of China's organ harvesting were practitioners of Falun Gong, a spiritual practice that is banned in China. Though the tribunal said that Uyghurs, they're talking about the UK had a human rights tribunal that determined the Chinese Communist Party was murdering Falun Gong practitioners for their organs. They determined that in the UK. And it notes the tribunal said that Uyghurs had also been targeted. The CCP does it to several groups. It notes that Falun Gong followers were believed to be ideal donors because they do not smoke or drink and live relatively healthy lives. It says Professor Rogers noted that as practicing Muslims, most Uyghurs also do not drink. In other words, they want the liver, right? It says the tribunal found that beyond a reasonable doubt, China had killed prisoners of conscience to extract their organs, which amounted to crimes against humanity. It notes as well that Chung Pei-ming, a Falun Gong practitioner, spoke to the Telegraph last year about how parts of his lung and liver were forcibly removed. That individual is the only known survivor of forced organ harvesting. He basically escaped the prison before they could finalize the whole procedure. But they did remove parts of his organs during that time. Now, it notes that basically what's happening, if the Chinese Communist Party is building even more facilities for this, it's actually pretty serious because it suggests the Communist Party, they're planning to increase the scale of these mass killings. They're eliminating groups of people. This is a genocide. That could also mean an expansion of what I'd say is already a very large-scale genocide. End Transplant Abuse in China, one of the organizations that has been calling us out for a long time, they said on X, we are deeply alarmed by reports of plans to expand organ transplant facilities in Xinjiang, China. This move raises urgent concerns that forced organ harvesting is escalating, especially given Xinjiang's extremely low voluntary organ donation rate. It says the scale of expansion is disproportionate and without real oversight and accountability, risks becoming a front for continued crimes against humanity and genocide. They say we are calling governments worldwide to demand independent inspections and enforce safeguards to ensure all organ sourcing in Xinjiang meets international ethical standards. One issue with China and organ transplants, in the West, we have donor systems. They technically have it in China, but I'll explain why it doesn't work. In the West, we have organ donation systems. In China, they technically have it too. It's been known for a long time they use prisoners when they execute them. They use the organs of prisoners for organ transplants. The issue in China is you can be imprisoned for opposing democracy. You can be imprisoned for refusing to follow the communist-run version of Christianity. You can be imprisoned for being Tibetan or from Xinjiang. You can be imprisoned for practicing Falun Dafa, which is truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. You can be imprisoned for just speaking ill about the Chinese Communist Party. You can be imprisoned for questioning the economic growth numbers when they're released by the Communist Party every year. And if you understand that if you can be imprisoned for all of that and they're killing prisoners for their organs, this is a way of eliminating targeted groups of people happening on a very large scale. The other reason you don't have a normal transplant industry there is Chinese culture. In Chinese culture, they believe in maintaining the body after death. This goes way back. You can read old Chinese novels and stories and history books. They believe in maintaining the body because traditional Chinese culture belief, and this is maintained today, they believe that if you cut off the arm or dismember a body or harvest the organs, they think it affects the spirit after death. So they do not do that. You'll find in a lot of traditional Chinese books, if people are going to be executed, they will traditionally beg to not have their bodies desecrated. For them, it's a big thing. So people are not going to sign up to donate their organs because of the culture. They're not going to sign up for that. And so the only way they get these organs is by killing people for them. And they have to do it oftentimes if people are still alive because it makes the organs fresher. So people go buy an organ, they take a living person off the shelf, so to speak, and they murder them for the transplant. It's horrifying stuff. And they're expanding it now. Now, another topic, though, Trump's tariffs are about to hit again. And remember, he only put them mostly on hold until July 9th. That's this Wednesday, coming up very soon. Now, it's been set, at least for now, at about 10% almost across the board. Some are getting slightly higher, much higher tariffs, but higher tariffs. But they could be increased quite a bit, country by country. Donald Trump is sending out letters as we speak to countries about this. He said on Truth Social that, quote, the United States tariff letters and or deals with various countries from around the world will be delivered starting 12 p.m. Eastern, Monday, July 7th, today in other words. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke on CNN's State of the Union about this as well. Watch.
We're going to be very busy over the next 72 hours. President Trump's going to be sending letters to some of our trading partners saying that if you don't move things along, then on August 1st, you will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level. So I think we're going to see a lot of deals very quickly. And, Dana, we're going to send out probably 100 letters to small countries where we don't have very much trade. And most of those are already at the baseline 10%.
But you said August.
Now, let me show you some more details on this. This is CNBC. They said U.S. President Donald Trump said he had signed letters to 12 countries outlining the various tariff levels they would face on goods they export to the United States, with the take it or leave it offers to be sent out on Monday. Basically saying, hey, look, we don't need you, you need us. This is the deal, take it, or I don't know, who knows what the punishment's going to be. It notes in a global trade war that has upended financial markets and set off a scramble among policymakers to guard their economies. Trump in April announced a 10% base tariff rate and additional amounts for most countries, some ranging as high as 50%. However, he said, all but the 10% base rate were subsequently suspended for 90 days to allow more time for negotiations to secure deals. That period ends this Wednesday, July 9th. It says, although Trump said early on Friday the tariffs could be even higher, ranging up to 70%, with most set to go into effect on August 1st, coming up sooner rather than later. Now, look, when it comes to the actual tariffs, what we're going to see in this, my take, the amount, it's going to depend on the country. It's going to depend on the kind of trade deal they have with the United States already. Did we make a bad deal with them in the past? Do they rip us off? Do they fine our companies? Are they putting, fines on American tech companies? All of that's going to be factored in. Have we been trading at a deficit with them? In terms of the way Trump is measuring tariffs, because there's been criticism saying that Trump is putting tariffs on countries that don't equal the rates of tariffs they put on us. He's not just looking at tariffs, he's looking at trade deficits. So and also the other types of restrictive policies they have that might punish American companies. For example, Canada, a big one, they were going to put this big tax retroactively on American big tech companies. Trump is regarding that as a tariff. Europe putting fines on American tech companies, he's regarding that as a tariff. Bad trade deals where we lost a lot of our factories to other countries, they're including that in the tariffs when they look at trade deficits. So they're looking at all of this. And so again, this Wednesday is going to be some of the tariffs back on the table. This will not be all of them. There will probably be a lot more. But this is the beginning of the restart of it. Also, you might have seen it. The CIA, they're declassifying even more documents. Briefly, these are not the Epstein files. You might have seen that they're now saying that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. They're saying, but a lot of people believe that Epstein did not kill himself. Now they're saying that Epstein killed himself. And they're also saying there is no client list. Apparently, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now for trafficking children and other people to nobody. There were no clients. There's no client list. Also, the thousands of videos of child abuse they're going through, apparently there's no clients. There's no client list, so we're probably not going to see a client list. Now, to be fair, that doesn't mean there were not clients. They're just saying there's no set list they're going to declassify. We'll see if they release anything on it. If they do, in my personal belief, they'll probably do it as it'll be people committing crimes. It'll have to be through indictments if they do go after people. They can't just release something publicly of people accused of a crime without charging them for a crime. In my personal take, that's the way the Epstein files are going to go. But back to what's happening with the CIA. They've been saying for a while now also that they would give us the files on the JFK assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination. Until now, it's mostly been duds. They're not really giving us much. The documents that have been declassified, they haven't really told us anything new. That has now changed. That has now changed. They just declassified a CIA memo that's actually pretty significant. And this new memo shows they had a psychological warfare officer who had, in fact, met with the assassin Oswald before the assassination. This is a big deal. Epoch Times said a newly released CIA memo reveals that George Joannides, an undercover officer specializing in psychological warfare, used the alias Howard Jebler while managing an exile group opposed to Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. It says the group also interacted with Lee Harvey Oswald in 1963, that's the assassin, contradicting decades of CIA denials about Giannidis' role in events leading up to President John F. Kennedy's assassination. It says for years the CIA maintained that it had no ties to the Cuban Student Directorate, an anti-communist group that clashed publicly with Oswald in 1963 and played a pivotal role in publicizing his pro-Castro sympathies after Kennedy's slaying. It says, however, a CIA memo dated January 17, 1963, released this week under the JFK Records Act, shows that Giannidis was issued false identification under the name Howard Jebler. The memo notes that CIA's Miami station, known as JM/Wave, requested alias documents for Giannidis, including a fake driver's license. My personal take, it's not incriminating in and of itself, but it does include a semi-direct tie. It does include information that was hidden from the public. It does include information that might contradict previous statements they made saying there was no tie whatsoever. This is a little complicated because the way it works, this individual was tied to this student group that was anti-communist. Lee Harvey Oswald was pro-communist. They clashed, meaning it's 1 degree of separation, essentially. So, or maybe 2 degrees of separation. Again, not a smoking gun, some might say, but it's still a big deal. We're getting a clear picture very slowly of what actually happened with the assassination. All right, folks, that said, a lot going on, too much to talk about even in just one episode. But let's jump into some questions, comments, discussion, anything you want to say. Leave it in the chat. Let's jump to it now. And also, don't forget to hit the like button if you haven't yet already. It does help the show quite a bit. Let's see. First question. Seymour Butts. You're saying Musk was not born in the U.S., so he can't ever be president. He said he would only concentrate on Congress, senators and Congress people only. Yeah. So a lot of people are questioning whether Elon Musk is going to put up a presidential candidate. As of now, he's not saying that. His direct threat was to Congress. He's saying that he was going to have people removed from office. He was going to vote them out. And it seems that's what he's now on track to do. We'll see how that works, because it is the case that third-party candidates tend to split the vote. We don't have a strong system in the United States to have third-party candidates and make them not split the vote as they do in some countries. And so if he does that, he might lead Democrats to winning more seats in the House and Senate. On that point, I would also question whether the polls he used were just among conservative voters. Because I can tell you, like, look, if Democrats had a poll and there was a guy among the Democrats being like, hey, should I create a new third party that will split the Democrat vote and probably make them lose congressional elections all across the United States? How many Republicans do you know who would vote on that poll because they want to see them lose? You probably have quite a lot. So I do think, I don't know how accurate those polls are in terms of like Republican sentiment. Who knows? On the other side too, it did get a lot of votes, and so maybe some of that was international votes, maybe a lot was normal votes. But if you understand that the majority did vote saying that they want to create it, it does suggest there are probably Republicans also who want it. Now, how can they possibly do that without splitting the vote? My personal take, if they want to play it nice, they need to work together, meaning the Republican Party is going to have to work with Elon Musk if they don't want to split the vote. And that means Donald Trump and his endorsements are going to have to work with Elon Musk if he does not want to split the vote. What this does is it makes Elon Musk an actual political player. He's already been big money behind the scenes. This makes him an official player. He's basically the George Soros for Republicans now. You know, he's basically like the George Soros equivalent on the conservative side of the. I shouldn't say Republicans now because he has his own third party. That's basically the role he's playing now. Now, will he run personally for elections? As Seymour Butts noted, he could not run as president, but if you were not born in the United States and you are an American citizen, you can actually hold most other government jobs. So he could be governor, he could potentially run for the Senate. You have a lot of people who are not born in the U.S. who are senators and members of Congress. He could do that. He's not yet signaled he plans to, but he could. And so we'll see. We don't know any of the candidates yet, but we'll see where it goes. I can say personally, I am actually a fan of third parties. I don't like the idea of like two parties controlling everything. But I also know that our political system is not designed for it. And so a third party vote is usually just a split the vote. It's the way it works, unfortunately. Look at old Ross Perot. Some of you might remember, of course, George Bush and so on. Ross Perot. I like Ross Perot. I would probably have voted for him if I was old enough to vote for him. He split the vote and he caused Republicans to lose the election. You know what I mean? It's just the way our election system works. Jay Hickson, you're saying Elon Musk's new political party will do the opposite of what he wants. It will divide the Republican/conservative voting bloc, paving the way for a progressive/Dems to win. There's also the wild card that Democrats might also create a third party. Or there's the really far out wild card that Elon Musk can manage to actually capture some of the Democrat vote. Because remember, polling, even among Democrats, shows about a 40% of Democrats over that, they want a third party. And it's because a lot of them don't agree with the far left. They don't agree with the progressives. And so you have a conflict among Democrats between like the more socialist types and the more moderate types. New York City is a perfect example of that. Look what's happening in New York City. You have Mondami, who's running as a Democratic socialist, but he ran as the Democrat Party. He's running on the Democrat Party ticket, but he's with DSA. He's technically with the third party, but he won the Democrat primary. You have Cuomo and Eric Adams running against him. You have them running against him, also Democrats, but I guess they're going to run as third parties. I have no idea. So whether it's Democrats or Republicans, you do have a split right now. And if Elon Musk can position his party to not just represent disenfranchised Republicans, and he can also make it represent disenfranchised Democrats, if he actually does what he says he wants to do and captures what he says is the 80% in the middle, that could be a big thing. Is that possible? I don't know, because Elon Musk is not very well liked among Democrats. Maybe that's changing now that he's kind of going to war with Trump. I don't know. But I do think you have a lot of, I think it is the case you have a lot of Americans in the middle who don't feel either party fully represents them. So, we'll see where this goes. What's more likely to happen? I would say he'll probably split the vote, but again, a lot of that will rest on whether he can actually make policies that resonate with the middle. So we'll see. Anthony Evelyn, you're saying, does the Chinese military want to up their Taiwan invasion timetable, and Xi is dragging his foot? So, okay, so what I told you was happening is now happening. Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, is no longer fully in control of the Chinese Communist Party. Those of you who've watched Crossroads for a while, you'll know that I've been talking about this. I think I was talking about it several months ago. This is now in the headlines. This is now establishment media. They're saying this is the case. What I told you was happening months ago, they're now talking about. In fact, I should probably do a little more on that soon. Basically, this is what happened. There's a power struggle happening in the Chinese military. Xi Jinping, okay, Chinese politics are a little complicated because it's a lot different from our system. Just because someone is premier, just because they're the head of the Chinese Communist Party, does not necessarily mean they control everything. Within the CCP, there are different power structures. There's the party itself, right? If you only control the party, you're just a figurehead. You don't control any of the big areas. There's the party itself, there's the military, there's the armed police, there's the intelligence networks and the spy networks, which are huge power, especially outside of China. There's also battles over economic sectors. For example, for a long time, Hong Kong and the economic sectors in Hong Kong, especially the real estate industry, those were mainly under a rival faction to Xi Jinping. That was under at the time, the Jiang Zemin faction. Jiang Zemin's now dead. But that was under the Jiang Zemin faction. And some believe that when Xi Jinping took over Hong Kong, it was to basically take over those economic sectors in Hong Kong. It was part of a power struggle. So Xi Jinping, what he has done over the course of this power struggle that used to be between him and one of the former leaders, Jiang Zemin. That was 2 leaders ago, right? Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, Xi Jinping. That power struggle basically ended when Jiang Zemin died. Xi Jinping took over most of the party. and basically made, I was talking about it. You might remember I said that he was walking in the footsteps of Mao Zedong. He was following the same steps Mao Zedong took to consolidate absolute power over the CCP. So he controlled the economic sectors, he controlled the party itself, he controlled the military, he controlled the People's Armed Police, he consolidated power. Now, one of the big steps with that was gaining control of the military, because as I mentioned, maybe 2 years ago, if Xi Jinping did not control that, he would mostly just be a figurehead. He would not actually control everything. And that main circle of power, he did gain control of it. What has now happened is that a new rival faction is coming up. I don't know where they stand. Typically, the way the CCP works, it's not like you have a good faction and a bad faction. It's like the bad faction and the other bad faction. It's the way it normally works. But you have a new faction that came up, and they're purging the loyalists of Xi Jinping. They've gone back and forth quite a bit. This new faction, they've gotten rid of enough of Xi Jinping's cohorts in the military that he no longer really controls it. It's under new ownership. Now, Xi still controls other areas, but he does not fully control everything anymore. And losing control of the military, that's kind of game over. Whoever controls the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, controls the CCP. It is fair to say at this point, while Xi Jinping is still technically in charge of the CCP, he no longer controls it. And a lot of people are questioning, what does that mean? Okay, so this is a few different parts. Some people are asking about Taiwan, and will they invade Taiwan? Some people are also asking about human rights issues. Okay, a couple points with this. And I should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about organ harvesting. The way the CCP works, the military has private business enterprises. They have to make money. It used to be the case that most of the businesses in China were controlled by the military. The military actually runs businesses to cover its budget. Organ harvesting is one of their businesses. Live organ harvesting, human rights abuses, is a business of the Chinese military. A lot of the organ harvesting centers, they're military hospitals. They're Chinese military hospitals. And you have to understand, if they're increasing the number of organ harvesting centers by threefold, that means they're getting more money for the military. That means they're building the military budget. Or it means corruption, one of the two. Man, probably a bit of both when you're talking about the CCP. So they're looking for money, and that means killing more innocent people to make money to do it. But that also means they're trying to expand the PLA. So they're doing something to grow the military right now. The other big thing, will they invade Taiwan? Okay, so there are two interests in why. There are reasons they would not want to do it. There are reasons why they would want to do it. Why would they not want to do it? It would basically cause World War III, right? The CCP just came out and publicly announced they will not allow Russia to lose the war with Ukraine. Now, how did the CCP make that announcement? It went through the South China Morning Post. Now, the South China Morning Post, they're not technically state-controlled. They used to be an independent media. They were bought up by Alibaba. Alibaba, that was Jack Ma. Jack Ma got ousted. They kicked him out of his own company. And then the CCP basically took over Alibaba. So South China Morning Post is a media. After that happened, they started becoming more of a CCP mouthpiece. They're the ones who made the announcement. So again, basically what is a CCP mouthpiece declared the Chinese Communist Party will not allow Russia to lose the war, meaning they're going to pump it up. They're going to send troops there through one means or another. They're going to keep supplying weapons and everything because they need it. Why do they need it? For the exact reason I've been telling you for 4 or 5 years now. The CCP in its own military doctrine wants to have multiple wars, 4 wars going on in the world to keep America busy and to split our forces. They need a war with Russia, they need a terrorism war, they need a war in Latin America. That was the writings of the CCP itself. They declared this openly. I don't know why it's only now becoming news, because I've been talking about it for the last 5 years. They state it publicly. The media is only now talking about this, right? Anyway, you can see what I deal with here, folks, right? At least they're realizing it now. The CCP is now again stating this. What are they doing also? They're sending more troops, allegedly from North Korea, but they also just announced they're sending troops from Laos to go fight in Ukraine on behalf of Russia. One important factor, Laos and Cambodia are deeply under the CCP's control and influence. In one case with this, when they have Operation Fox Hunt and they want to arrest people, they try to lure people to Laos or Cambodia, because in those countries, Chinese Communist Party agents can arrest people. If you understand, the CCP has that much influence in those countries. If one of those countries sends troops, after the CCP declares they're not going to allow them to win a war, almost without a doubt the CCP is involved. Just, you can say the CCP is behind this. And they might do what they did in Vietnam also. Which anybody who fought in Vietnam would know. The Chinese Communist Party was sending troops dressed as Vietnamese soldiers. It was known the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, had a footprint heavily in the Vietnam War. Many people would know that they were the blue uniforms. Any Vietnam veteran would, I would assume, know this. Anybody who was in a prison camp or death camp in Cambodia would know this as well. The blue uniforms of the Chinese officers who were training people and running the whole show. But same thing also with the Korean War. The CCP was sending in soldiers. People talk about how they would send people in to, they would clear minefields with humans. They put up huge minefields and barbed wire fencing, and they'd have people rush and blow themselves up and throw their bodies on the barbed wire, and that's how they cleared the way. What the CCP was doing is it was taking monks, Buddhist monks, and it was making them those people. Those were not soldiers. They were massacring people and using them as cannon fodder. Now understand the way the CCP currently works. You have massive social unrest. You have the lying flat movement. What does that mean? Folks, they're not gonna stop me that easy. They're not gonna silence us that easy. Don't worry about it. Sorry, that was our end, not yours. Our internet just dropped out. I apologize for that. Anyway, understand this. The CCP, understand history. The way they've done this in the past, understand where things are at right now. They're increasing the budget. Xi Jinping has a problem domestically. What is his problem? They don't have enough young people working. The lying flat movement is ruining the country. A lot of people are protesting. They have social unrest. The military itself is challenging Xi Jinping. What happens if you go to war? Well, you lose people. They die. Who goes to war? Young people and your military. How do you decide who goes to war? Whoever the CCP says goes to war. What have they done in previous wars? They conscripted the people they wanted to eliminate, and they put them on the front lines. They used the Korean War, the human wave tactics, to massacre Buddhist monks. And then they had the actual troops behind them. You know what I mean? What could Xi Jinping do if they started a war right now? They could get all those lying flat movement kids and kill them all, or make them work. They could get the Chinese military that are disloyal to Xi Jinping and kill all or most of them. They could kill most of them. What does that do for the economy? It means they have a war economy, and it means they can force people to work. What does it mean for the elderly? Look, they don't have the same age stuff we do. They could conscript the elderly and just throw them in the grinder too and kill them. For the CCP, there is a type of like strategic murder. They do this. They might do this as a way to get rid of certain people. And it could be part of a power struggle. And people might say, well, what good does it do the CCP to get rid of its military? Just because you kill off the current military doesn't mean you don't have a military. You just recruit more people. And so he could use this to purge the military. He could use it to get rid of the unwanted in China. And he could use it to start a wartime economy. He could also use it to consolidate power. And so will the CCP start a war? I don't know. They might. They might do it. And I would actually say the CCP publicly declaring that it will maintain the war in Ukraine for its sake, the context of that is they need to have the Ukraine war going if they want to invade Taiwan. That's the context of it. So them making a public declaration could signal that that is the intent. My personal take on all of this. Anyways, folks, on that light note, happy Monday. There's more to talk about every day than we could ever talk about. So join me again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm curious in the comments. Let me know what you think. What do you think about Xi Jinping? Do you think he's going to start a war? I'm curious on your take. Also, I want to know what you think about the America Party. Do you think it's a good idea to have a third party in the United States? Do you think the current two parties really do represent all of America? What do you think the solution is to have representative democracy, which is a republic, in terms of having candidates who more fully represent people if the current two parties don't represent everyone? Let me know what you think. I'm curious on your thoughts. Also, join me again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, thank you so much for being here. Please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.